Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Move Forward Anyway podcast, featuring dream accelerating inspiration. I'm Jeff Meyer, your host, author, entrepreneur, and coach. My goal with this podcast is to help you identify and clarify your own dream by taking wisdom from others' successes and challenges. If you're looking to take action on your dream, to make a difference doing something you love, but your fears are holding you back, then this podcast is for you. If you're interested in finding additional support, you can also check out my Dream Accelerator coaching program designed to help realize your full potential and reshape your future. As always, you can learn more about my Dream Accelerator program at jeffmeyer.org. Using my Dream Accelerating formula, heart-centered entrepreneurs can focus on their dream, name their fears, change their mindset, define their next, and move forward anyway. All right, welcome back, fellow dreamers. It is good to have you back in another episode of the Move Forward Anyway podcast. I'm excited to introduce you to this young man from Arizona, Tim Ahlman. Thank you so much, brother, for being on my podcast and for sharing a little bit of encouragement for people who are wanting some encouragement in their dreams and encouraging to pursue what God has put on their heart. So thanks again for joining us. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I know. Tim Ahlman, husband, father, leader with the Unite Leadership Collective, pastor at Christ Greenfield now for about 10 years. I'm a third generation Lutheran Church, Missouri Synod pastor. And I have big dreams for our church, multiplying not just churches, but leaders. And 20 campuses in 20 years is our kind of stretch dream right now. And with all of the leaders for those respective churches being raised up within our congregation. And so, it's an exciting time to be a Christian. Jeff, it's an honor to get to know you and be on your podcast today. So that's a very high level and I finished, I guess, my doctorate in organizational leadership. Man, getting across the finish with a thesis was a bear, but with the help of the Holy Spirit, obviously, and Christ's body, I got across a couple years ago, and I've been doing a lot of writing on the traits and characteristics of pastors who collaborate in mission. That's a mouthful, but the hypothesis is we should work together more so. And how do we fan into flame the dreams of others? Rather than just our own dream, obviously leading toward the big dream of multiplying disciples in anticipation of the return of Christ.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me the genesis of this dream. Where did it start for you? How did it get sparked in you to want to raise up leaders and leaders that will start ministries and start churches and collaborative work with the body of Christ? Where did that where did that dream start?
Yeah. So I'll give you law and gospel. The law is that I sensed in myself this very early on that because of, the force of my personality. And if you talk about the Enneagram, Jeff, I'm a performer. I'm a 3. And so I've never really met a microphone or a stage that really freaked me out from my youngest years, which is just kind of strange. Also an athlete, as a football and baseball, basketball player in high school, and then played college and blah, blah, blah. So understanding the shadow side of every gift and recognizing I could really mess up my life and the lives of others in a pastoral leadership role unless I consistently was about bringing other people to the table on the platform, identifying gifts and falling in love with development rather than the show. So falling in love with the grow rather than the show, right? I have to tell myself that like all the time. And I think just with the case studies, I don't want to be a stat of a pastor that, flamed up and then fizzled out because there was little accountability. There were little people who could challenge. And I mean, the quickest way to grow a church is to orient around a personality. And we see that. And I don't want to be one of those personalities. I desperately love not only the words and the work of Jesus, but the way of Jesus and how he released the mission. And then, I mean, Philippians 2, like if anybody had the right to say he was the man, it was Jesus. And yet he humbled himself to the point of death. And then Luke 9 and 10 deployed the found to go reach the lost, and the sending of the 12 and the 72, which are like key life stories for me. So I guess just the shadow side of my personality, one, but then the gospel of leadership development, Genesis, for me is that I saw in my dad, and just like the legacy of faithfulness day in and day out, Sunday in, Sunday out, showing up so Jesus can show off, bringing, my dad's an amazing communicator, Jeff, and discipleship is more caught than taught, just catching. Yeah, I thought it was my dad. It was the Holy Spirit, right? Catching the Holy Spirit in my dad's life as he was consistent, both, at home and then within the church, the wider church as well. So, I pray that's a little bit of my background. He's transitioned out of now full-time ministry, doing a little podcast stuff and daily devotion, daily truths with Dave Ahlman, so I'm actually listening to that. I've been reflecting. I interviewed my dad last week for a couple different podcasts, but I want to archive those for my kids and grandkids, right?
Absolutely. So they can hear his voice and
I'm listening daily to his 5-minute little daily truths, walking through the book of Matthew right now. So there's a shadow side in me, but then kind of the legacy and wanting to faithfully steward that kind of family legacy.
So your ministry, you're a pastor like I am, and you're doing things outside the local church like I am. Talk to me a little bit about, I get a lot of people asking me all the time, how does your church allow you to do all this stuff outside the church? And it's a puzzling thing for a lot of guys. They would like to be able to do something outside of the local church, but they feel compelled to just stay within the walls and care for that local church where they are particularly called to participate in. And tell me about your journey. You've been at Christ for 10 years. So talk to me about how that has emerged and how your leadership is on board with you using your gifts more broadly.
It takes time, right? And time equals trust. And early on in our story here, it was all Christ Greenfield, 24/7, bringing a sense of continuity, of vision. Who are we? Where are we going? How well are we loving one another on our way to there? Our board governance evolved in that time from a little bit more of a loose policy governance, a little bit more personality-centered approach, to now we're a strict Carver governance model. Not every church really could or should do that. We have a lot of leaders who can govern with one voice around policy who are on our board right now. And so our board has basically said, not that they have to tell me this based on policy, that they informally have said like 25-30% of your time, Tim, can be about Unite Leadership Collective, consulting, building cohorts of congregations working together. They obviously read my thesis, which is this dream of circuits working together more consistently, and bringing more people to the table. And so whatever I need basically to do that, they said yes. And at the same time, this is all about development. If Christ Greenfield is not well cared for, if we're not well shepherded, if the people and the systems are not in place so that, hey, when there's not just a visitation, but there's a marriage in crisis, that we have people who are there. I just was blessed to get a brand new partner, and I don't like using associate or senior, blah, 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 but he's probably 80% of his time is kind of reactive shepherding, and that's where his gifting is. And about 80% of my time is proactive vision and culture conversations. And so it's all about team. And then with the number of, like for Advent, I'm just getting down to brass tacks here. Like for Advent on Wednesdays, our deacons and vicars are preaching. I think I'm only preaching 1 as I'm gearing up toward Christmas Eve and all of that, I think I'm only preaching like maybe 2 Sundays, 2 out of the 4 in Advent. I love to preach, Jeff, and I also love not to preach because it requires a lot, the preparation and the energy expelled on a Sunday morning 4 times, all that. It's a big deal. So now to have a partner who's at our Gilbert campus, who's just an epic communicator of the gospel, that's so kind of freeing. So yeah, I guess I'm answering your question. It just takes time. And if the Lord has not put that in your heart, if this kind of apostolic calling has not been placed upon your life, like don't force it. It's not your calling. Just be faithful to shepherd God's people where you're at. But we've not, unfortunately, set up the system where folks who have this kind of higher level church angst can both stay connected to the local church and then shape churches working together. So I don't have any desire, district presidents, not whatever, man. I think we lose our way when apostolic leaders are disconnected from the local church. And so I have the blessing to live that kind of dual reality right now.
That's amazing. That apostolic calling is something I really resonate with. And I have found in my journey that it's been something that has caused conflict in people that are in the local church. It's caused conflict with my denominational leaders that want me to stay in my lane, which is a shepherding role. They've isolated the calling of pastor to a shepherding role. Your job is to preach, administer the sacraments, and visit people and take care of them. And that is not my calling. That is not what God has stirred in my heart to do. And so there has been a constant tension within this system with my calling. Have you experienced that too?
Everything rises and falls on leadership. And by the grace of God, I am in a very healthy circuit and a very healthy district where my district.
So just so the listeners understand, a circuit is a regional, local collective of churches, 7 or 8 in a city. We have 7 in our city in Madison. And a district is statewide, or sometimes because we have multiple, we have so many churches in certain states. Some states have divided, like we have North and South Wisconsin. You have a Southwest region. And so it depends on the particular leader of that district as to what is approved, blessed, encouraged, or trying to squish and push down. And so, yeah, thanks for letting me interrupt you there. Go ahead.
Yeah. So our district president, Jeff, a regional guy, says we're a connector, and the district does some things for local churches, but we're going to connect to a number of these auxiliary ministry organizations like Unite Leadership Collective or 5-2 or Link. These are other within our denomination, other groups, entrepreneurial groups who are working to really, when the rubber hits the road, what does the pastor and the church need to help take their next step to grow in health and maybe multiply disciples and ministries. So we're at the table as one of the menu of options as our church body hears, and we don't feel like we're competing with, like the districts is doing this or these kind of outside the church people are doing that. Like we don't play like that in our region. So praise be to God. And I lament that in some regions, those who have been placed kind of as that bishop over, dozens and dozens of churches may not share that same heart. That's a bummer.
Yeah, it is. It's very unfortunate. So when you have, let's just back up and let me ask it this way. Have you experienced resistance to your dream? And resistance can be external. It can also be internal. Talk to us a little bit about the resistance you have dealt with in pursuing your dream of seeing collaborative work, seeing leaders multiplied. You're talking about vicars and deacons preaching. Well, that kind of effort here got me into hot water. It wasn't blessed. So what kind of resistance have you experienced?
Yeah, so I'll start internal, then I'll go external. Imposter syndrome, which is the voice of Satan, like, who are you? Like, what are you?
Yeah.
You don't have anything
Yeah.
to offer. Like, no one's going to listen to you, man. Like, you've got, if people really knew, like, the shadow side, the mask, being a performer, who is the real you? Are you the real? So yeah, I mean, there's resistance internal all the time. And then external resistance right now is twofold. One is a lot of pastors and churches, as we come alongside to listen and learn, are pretty apathetic and overwhelmed. And the overwhelm has led to this kind of general apathy. So, like with engaging churches, it's a slow go in terms of building out the networks of churches that can work together. We experienced this incredible growth, not just numeric, but from a culture perspective, in working with Leadership Network and their accelerator, a year-long experience of churches coming together every quarter to take the right next steps and building their leadership development pathway. And so we were just like lit up on this. Leadership Network gave us their blessing. Here's kind of the curriculum. You make it your own in your own denomination. And to actually live out collaboration between churches and building systems that could be shared between churches, the resistance with a lot of pastors is, one, well, we already have our discipleship's organic or something like that, which is like, nah, there's little intention when you say organic, bro. And then two, there's this insecurity. Like, I know I should be doing this. If people really get under the hood, like, so I feel shame maybe. So yeah, it's a slow go in building trust between congregations. It does not happen overnight. And then some other resistance in our denomination is denominational leaders being wedded to the how we form disciples, rather than being open to new ways that we're kind of pioneering right now. We can be institutionally seen as a threat. And so I could just say, well, we believe that there's different ways to form future leaders that's highly contextual, less expensive, mentor team based. And that's in partnership with our group called Kairos University and the Luther House of Studies there. I can go deeper there, but this kind of model, to keep it high level, this kind of model is seen as threatening by some who are in positions of influence, presidents and otherwise.
Yeah, for sure. So when you hit that resistance as a leader, how have you managed to keep on and not pull back, shrink back? How have you been able to play scared? How have you been able to, the name of the podcast is Move Forward Anyway. You keep moving forward anyway. So what has helped you do that?
Man, I got so many friends, people that I hang out with who don't see me as Pastor Tim or leader, blah, 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 that just kind of see me as Tim. And so there's this posture like, what's the worst that could happen? Let's do worst case scenario. And the worst case, because I have friends, doesn't feel that scary. And people that aren't close to me, because I have close friends, they really can't hurt me. Because you don't know my heart. If you've not spent the time to get to know me, then if you say mean things like on social or even in an email from somebody that we just have kind of a more of a surface level, you've developed kind of a persona of who I am, rather than knowing my heart and my true desire to see not just our church body, but the kingdom of God at large expand, and doing, as Paul says, becoming all things to all people to win some. Like, this is God's given me this, not just apostolic, but evangelical heart. And those that are closest to me know that. And that's, Jesus obviously knows it. Jesus knows my shadow sides as well, and he still loves me. And at the very same time, like, I got a safety net. Like, more leaders, I think they resist going after bold dreams because we believe the lie that a pastor can't have friends. Like, my dad actually learned this, Jeff, when he was going through the seminary. Be wary of having close friends in the church.
I learned it. We were told not even be wary. You shouldn't have friends.
It's toxic to the human soul, Jeff.
How do we even build discipling relationships if we can't have friends?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I've
where
said,
it gets worked out, right? That's where faith and life gets worked out. It gets worked out in relationships.
that's right. That's right. If, like Jesus had friends. I have not called, like, let's just go to Jesus. Like, I've called you friends. Everything that the Father has revealed to me, I've made known. There's nothing about who I am and my mission that I'm holding back from you.
No.
So if Jesus invited others, like, why can't a pastor invite those? I got a friend named Ryan, and he goes, I'm not going to be in church leadership ever. And he's deeply in love with our Lutheran confessions. He's a multi-generational on the education side type of a leader. And Ryan just says, I believe the Lord called me here 5 years ago. We go back to college. I believe the Lord called me here just to be your friend, Tim. I can't tell you how invaluable that is for me.
Wow. That is amazing. So community, real authentic community is so important to being able to move forward anyway. Because there's got to be certain times that in the darkest places of your pursuit, you doubted, you got discouraged, you wondered if it was going to work. And maybe even thought of giving up, quitting, pulling back. And community that keeps cheering you on and believing in you and investing in you, and having someone that would say that I believe I'm called to be your friend. Remarkable.
Yeah. I'm
preaching on David and Jonathan on Sunday. We're entering a month of just looking at relationships as the core to living in the neighborhood, as neighboring life. And covenant relationships, like David and Jonathan, they actually made a covenant promise to each other. And we rarely do that. How cool would it be to actually have friends that actually say, you know what, I am with you in this no matter what. Let's shake on it. Let's, it's a tremendous promise that keeps us moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And to give some language to pastors maybe, or just a leader in general who feels isolated, just pray and ask Jesus. They're in your corner, and ask Jesus, who could I invite in simply as a friend, and then go to coffee, grab beer, whatever, go with that person and say, hey, I just feel from time to time like in a glass bubble. Ministry can certainly feel like a glass bubble. It's a kind, friendly bubble, but I just feel like I don't have anyone that I can really just talk to. So could we covenant to just be friends and not necessarily partners in ministry here? There are so many lay women and men who would love to do that for senior leaders, or for any leader. Hopefully that's kind of helpful language.
Yeah, that is great language. And not only for pastors, but for anyone who's pursuing a dream.
Yeah.
You don't do this pursuit alone. There's just no way. We need friends that will covenant with us.
Can I go deeper into that? Like, this is not, I'm a big pronoun guy, Jeff.
Yeah.
This is not about me. This is about him. And then it's about our work together. We is always smarter than me. So, I got some people that are, they're championing what God is doing. And then they're championing what the community is doing. And I get to play a very small part in God's grand vision. I don't have my grandpa's voice. Don't get the big head, son. This isn't about you. He would say that after a football game. I was a quarterback or whatever. Grandpa, you see, you did good. Good thing they caught the ball, right? Good thing they blocked, right?
Right.
So it's not about you. It's about Christ. And the last point on this, in terms of the dream, I really view whatever Jesus is doing in us as a part of the infinite game that really has no end into the day, the big D-Day, when Jesus returns to come. So in the infinite game, Simon Sinek, my desire, you should look at the book, but I'll give you the basic tenet. My desire is not to win. My desire is simply to stay in the game and run with perseverance the race set out for me. So that gives, like, there's no end, like, and I'm never going to arrive. And that kind of frustrates people, I think. But in my mind, it's this building up, and it's the kingdom of God, being built in anticipation of the fullness of God's kingdom coming on the last day. So
that's amazing. It just keeps going. The goal is to keep playing. It's not to win.
Yeah.
We talk about this in Neighboring Life. The goal is not to convert. The goal is to just continue the conversation.
That's right.
Right. And the Spirit does the converting. Kind of the same thing with the dream. If someone's thinking about this from outside of a Christian perspective, and you're thinking about your dream, it's to stay in the game, and to continue to play the infinite game, not just win. Because if that's the goal, then, man, I remember, I think it was Brett Favre after he won the Super Bowl. It's like, that was the whole goal. That was the whole goal, to win the Super Bowl.
Who am I?
Monday after, and the Monday after that, he's like, what's left? What is there? And it was just an emptiness after the big game. You have arrived, but there's more, right? There's so much more for athletes. Make it to 30 years old professionally, and then you're done, then what? So we're in this thing for life, and we have to find a way to continue to play the game, to continue in the conversation.
My one of my favorite verses, and I bet you'll like this one too, is Romans 5. Love Romans. And we've been walking in a series right now through it, but Romans 5, 3 and 4, and rejoice in your suffering. Isn't that, or glory in your suffering, the struggle. The suffering produces perseverance, character, and hope doesn't disappoint because it's rooted in the hope giver. His name is Jesus, the crucified and risen one. So in our world right now, I think for leadership, just think of it in reverse. When a dream doesn't get, you have this vision of something happening, but then it doesn't get realized, you lose hope. And then sin is what man curved in on him or herself. My character becomes all about me. You give in to all of the isms, right? The hedonism, the consumerism, materialism. You go after all these small g gods. Your perseverance wanes. And then you could even view suffering as God turning his back on you rather than God shaping you. So I really am learning, I think with the Apostle Paul, I'm learning to rejoice in resistance or some form of suffering, knowing God's doing a work in me that will never be completed until he returns. And I hope for that day,
That's so otherworldly, though. That's also a gift given, right? We can't get there by trying harder.
Nope.
I want to rejoice in suffering. I got to try harder. It doesn't work that way. But so I want to zero in on Kairos and United for a minute. These two branches of your overall dream, systems, you might call them, platforms, pursuit. Tell me, who are the who that are Kairos and United are designed to reach, and what's the why? So what's the who and what's the why?
Yeah. So the who is a pastor. This is our kind of persona as we're thinking about it. He's roughly my age. I'm 41 to 50. And he still has a semblance of a dream, maybe of planting a church or multiple churches from within his existing organization. But he doesn't know the how of that taking place. He sees a number of these types of ways to develop disciples within our congregation or within our denomination. Lay leadership development, there's been very little attention given to that. And so we're coming in and offering a very loose kind of foundation of a pathway. Some people say funnel. I like no one wants to be in a funnel, right? That seems like a toilet funnel, but like a pathway toward building a bench of the way we articulate it is serve team members, leaders, coaches, and then directors. And once you get to director, this is when you may start to differentiate between like those who understand systems and kind of the back office leaders to help a church continue to thrive organizationally, and then the youth leaders, the deacons, the evangelists, and even pastors, so that there's a way forward for them. And I think, I don't know why we've made leadership development often non-spiritual, I see like leadership development and discipleship as kind of two sides of the same coin. We're working with a church right now who differentiates. There's a Peter approach, which is the stay within the system approach. He stayed in Jerusalem. And then there's approach for sending, the Pauline approach for sending. So even kind of different, more discipleship on the Peter side, just local for the sake of this organization, this church. And then the Pauline side, this is all about multiplication and sending. Our structures right now in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, our denomination, have not been set up well for rapid multiplication. And so this is where our partnership conversation with Kairos University and the Luther House of Studies enters in. And if listeners want to know more, we recently recorded podcasts on American Reformation podcast and then Lead Time podcast, which maybe if you got show notes or whatever, you could reference. You could go deep with the executive directors there on what competency-based theological education is. So it allows an accredited degree, mentor-based, high content, but it's a balance of these 3 C's. And this is what I love. And this is what often, if you're solely sending off to residential education, 2 of these C's may get missed or not identified soon enough. So the first one is content, head. And our institutions do that very well. But we are not brains on a stick, I heard once. We are holistic beings. So content, but then locally, we get to identify character. Do they have the fruit of the Spirit? Is the fruit of the Spirit shown in their life? Integrity, etc., just a work ethic. Do they have a drive that fits kind of our culture? And then the third one is craft. So do they have the gifting? 2 Timothy 2, like find others who can teach, raise them up to raise others who can teach. Do they have a respective gifting to do whatever the ministry job requires? And unfortunately, if we solely rely on sending, I would say, okay, I'm going to tease something else out here. A lot of times, and I'm saying this with all love and respect, a lot of the pastors that we develop have one of 2 career choices. All right. Pastor or librarian. And I'm being a little silly here. But we fall in love with books, and maybe our love for developing people wanes from time to time. And so that's a little bit of the big vision. And now we're basically running a pre-seminary to seminary program out of our church. I have 5 bivocational vicars right now. We're hoping that they get colloquized into the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. They're going to be amazing bivo. Many of them can be vocational pastors in time. But again, the resistance is it's seen as not collaborative, not partnering with the current institutions, but competitive with. So yeah, that's a little bit more of the why. We do consulting. We bring cohorts of churches together. And then once they develop their upward draft of leaders, there's a certification pathway for them as well in partnership with Kairos and the Luther House of Study.
Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot to take in.
Sorry.
Tell me why this is so important to you to do this. Why are you doing this? What gap in the current reality of things are you filling? What problem are you solving with this dream?
Yeah, I don't think we've really understood the apostolic calling placed upon the Apostle Paul's life. That in his last moment, he's dying in a Roman prison, going to be beheaded here soon. An awful experience, awful way to close your earthly life. He's writing a letter to one guy, Timothy.
Mhm.
And my vision is, and I don't know if leaders articulate their life mission. I've been placed on planet Earth to disciple, discover, develop, and deploy hundreds of pastors who multiply the gospel through millions in time of other leaders, multiply the gospel to millions of people. So from just a few, in my life, I've been blessed right now to partner in discipling about 30 vicars, both internal and then according to our normal model. Could that get well over 100 in the next 20 years? And could they have, not all of them, but could many of them have that same sort of apostolic heart? So the bigger why is, I think pastors have been removed from leadership development all the way up to ordination. And I think that grieves the heart of God.
Mm. And there's a world in need, there's a world to reach, and we're not gonna reach them without multiplying and exponential multiplication, right? We're not gonna do it by addition.
Nope.
Or in our case, subtraction.
Right.
Wow, that's great. Well, keep it up, brother. I'm proud to be on board with you and to be in your camp. And thanks for this time. I want to ask two last questions. This next one is, what do you want to say to someone who's listening to this that has a dream but is a little bit afraid, or their internal resistance is keeping them from taking steps forward, but the dream won't let them go? It just keeps gnawing at them, but they're not taking action. What would you like to say to them today?
Find a way that you can clearly articulate it. I think to be unclear is to be unkind. And I think a lot of times the vision is there, the deeper why is there, but we've not clearly articulated it. And it doesn't have to be a what necessarily. I think it really is about the driving why I was put here. Find a friend who can help you put down what is in your heart, and then put it somewhere that you can kind of see it. I've got, in my world, in my bedroom closet area, where there's a board that kind of talks who I am right now, and just be drawn back to that consistently. And then so then habits. Are you one who is every single day getting one? Do you have a growth mindset, getting 1% better toward that dream? The whirlwind of life, it's going to capture you. But in your day, in your week, is there a habit of, I'm doing at least something or a handful of things that are fanning into flame that like bigger dream that God placed in my heart? And because like I said, I'm about 30% right now, kind of living in that extra church reality. That's where I feel like I'm in my sweet spot. It was just 2 to 5% for a while, but I'd talk about it a lot with my friends, and they would help hone it. And then the last word is, the perfect love of God casts out fear. Like, fear is a lie. Fear is from Satan. It really, and I'm not bringing shame here, it should have no place in the heart of the follower of Jesus. We acknowledge it. We know Satan's attacking us. If you have a big dream to reach people with the gospel, you got a bullseye in your back. I get it, but greater is he who is overcome the world and he who is within the world, so Jesus is above, he's within. Don't be afraid. Move.
Yeah, love it. Yeah, fear just gets increased when we don't have momentum, when we're not moving, we're sitting duck for it.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Last question. How can people find out more about what you're doing? You mentioned Kairos United, American Reformation podcast, which I was a guest on recently. How can people get a hold of you and find out more about what you're up to?
Yeah, uniteleadership.org. And we're on all the social media platforms as well, YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and whatnot. It's growing, small. It's small right now, but it's growing. I don't really monitor a whole bunch of that. We got people on our team. We got a couple women who are these crazy, dogged, tenacious leaders who are keeping on with all that kind of stuff, well, I get to have awesome conversations with leaders like you and many others. So there's a team of people that every single week are getting together to talk about congregations, put together the next accelerator, and talk with individuals about the Luther House of Study. So uniteleadership.org is the best place. And there's a little get started. If you just go there and fill in your information or the information of your congregation, we'll get in touch with you very soon.
Awesome. So it's uniteleadership.org, not United Leadership.
That's right. Unite Leadership. No D.
Unite Leadership. Okay. Awesome. Brother, thank you for your time. Be well. Can't wait till we actually will meet face to face.
Yeah, likewise, Jeff.
Yeah.
You're a gift, bud.
You are too. Keep it up. Proud of you.
You too.
Hey, fellow dreamer. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Head over to my website, jeffmeyer.org, for all of the show notes and links. And when you're ready to move from overthinking about your dream to actually taking action on it, consider joining the Dream Accelerator community. Our clients are getting crystal clear on their dream with our Dream Generator Vivid Description 5-step process. They're discovering the truth about fear and how to use it as fuel to take courageous steps in the right direction. And most importantly, they are walking a clear path forward because they have made an investment in themselves to confidently realize their dreams. The results are so inspiring. Having coaching and companions on the dream journey is crucial. Remember, fear will come, fear will stay. Move forward anyway.